And if you're going to have to build a foundation wall that's
takes a lot of extra engineering.
Taller than a human, you know, 6 to 12 feet tall, your foundation cost, which is already one of the more expensive trade packages in an estimate, is going to be pretty significant and can sometimes, make it not pencil out.
Right. Hey, thanks for joining us on the REI-NWA podcast. This is episode number 5, and we're going to be here with Cameron Johnson today. I'm your host, Coley Bailey, with the Lone Rock team at Fathom Realty. And this is the podcast for investors in Northwest Arkansas interested in real estate. So all things landlording and flipping and building houses, and even you rookies who are just trying to figure out how to get your feet wet and get started. This is the podcast for you. So thanks for joining us. I'm excited to introduce Cameron Johnson. Thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks, man.
Yes, good to see you.
To be here. So
we go back a little bit.
Yeah, we've been in at least the same groups for a while.
Yeah,
so
same groups, and I got to show you some houses, and we've looked at some duplexes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm excited to see how your career is progressing, and man, you're killing it. So
I'm trying as much as I can. So
well, give us a little bit of background on what you're doing and how you got started, and what you got coming up.
Yeah, so I am, as my day job, I'm a project manager for a company called Reform Design Build. We build high-end custom homes. We do high-end remodels. We do a couple of development projects for some higher-end stuff in Bentonville. I've been doing that for right at a year. Before that, I worked for a production builder up here, building spec houses and some smaller townhome rentals around the University of Arkansas and a couple other places in Northwest Arkansas. I started getting into this. I went to the U of A, got a degree in civil engineering, and the two sort of paths that you take with that degree, you go work for a design firm and you run CAD 40 hours a week at a minimum for a while and pay your dues and work on the math and the design side, or you go and project manage it more on the construction side, which is a little bit less, typically it's a little bit less office work. It's plenty of office work still, but a little bit more field work, a little bit more moving around, moving and shaking. You're handling less of the design side, and you're picking up you're picking up after the project has been designed and everyth's been laid out, everything's been built into a set of plans. We then take it, we build an estimate, figure out what it's going to cost. We look through all the details. We sort of do a lot of the legwork and heavy lifting up front for subcontractors, getting them all the information they're going to need to give us an accurate price for whatever their specific trade is. So when I graduated, I started working for a couple heavy civil contractors, which is more like utilities and roadways and bridges and a little bit of commercial work, and enjoyed that and learned a lot. It's a very different process than the residential stuff, but I bought my first investment property in 2021. I guess it was April of 2021. I graduated in December of 2020. So
man, right out of the gate.
I hit the ground running a little bit, and it was my intention. I was sort of learning about this stuff while I was in school as sort of a side gig. It's the same reason everybody does, build wealth, build some extra income for, whatever I want to use it for.
Absolutely.
And I moved back to Northwest Arkansas and decided that when I was going to do that, I wanted to get more into the residential stuff so that I could sort of dive into more of residential real estate, investment properties, development, and that's when I hired on with the production builder.
Okay.
And it's been exactly what I assumed it would be.
Yeah.
I now bid investment property projects all the time. Good experience. I've built really good relationships with subcontractors that do that exclusively.
So you're doing a lot of build to rent.
Yeah.
Properties.
So we'll do now. I'm doing more residential houses for my day job.
Okay.
But I've done, my previous job was almost exclusively for investors.
Yeah.
Locally and some out of state people looking to own some land here.
Cool.
But built some experience.
So you've got a program coming up for the Builders Circle, and just so everyone knows, this is going to be Tuesday, October 3rd at 5:30. at the Golden Corral in Rogers. And you're going to be talking about how to find the lots, how to pick the right lots for your projects and to get started for a small builder, small investor. And we're going to talk a little bit about what he's going to talk about in just a second, right after this from our champion sponsor.
I'm John Harvester with ProLift Garage Doors. My wife Julie and I run the company, own the company. We're so proud to be here in Northwest Arkansas. We just want to remind everybody, especially the REI members, that we do give them a 10% discount. We like to be involved in the community. ProLift is here to lift you up when your garage door lets you down.
All right, so what are we talking about at your builder circle?
So I've built a presentation and I'm going to run through a short sort of highlight list of topics that I would look for and that I look for when I am looking for new construction projects in Northwest Arkansas. So I use the skills from my day job all the time. I'm looking for lots. I'm looking for projects to do on my own, for my own, personal portfolio.
Yeah.
Either with the intention of building and selling, or building and renting out long term.
Right.
I've also, in certain areas, I look for good lots that would make good locations or might work well for short-term rentals too.
Okay.
So my presentation is going to be over just a short list of the first 5 or 6 aspects of a lot that I would look into and get details on.
So just kind of the factors that people need to be thinking about, in order to know that this is going to be a good project, depending on the outcome that you're looking for, whether you're trying to sell or rent it or Okay.
Basically, the first 5 things I look at that might not make something not work or not pencil out, and would quickly tell me that I need to move on. This is not going to work for what I have the intention of putting there.
Okay,
so,
cool.
Yeah.
So what kind of factors are, and we don't have to go into super detail on each one of them or anything, but what are some of those factors that people often miss that can sink their project before it really even gets going?
The first one I'm going to look at is probably this is going to seem common sense, but just location. I have specific areas that I like, that I know people that have built or have owned property there. Knowing a location, you can waste a lot of time with areas if you're looking to build rentals in areas that are going to be tougher to get market rent for. So I narrow that down off the bat. A little more of a specific topic that I look at is zoning first and foremost. Some areas are obviously, if something's already zoned appropriate for whatever you're trying to build, it's great. You don't have to spend any money or extra time rezoning. Some municipalities are much easier. The process of rezoning is much easier and less expensive than others. And if you've got a construction loan on something, the less time you have to spend in the admin and the permitting and the rezoning, the less time you have to carry that interest really building nothing.
Right.
So that's one I'll look at. But also sometimes the zoning, where areas that are tougher to work with on that can be advantageous if you're willing to do the work. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of can be an advantage there as well.
All right, so obviously one of the things that everybody has to think about is site-specific issues too. Like, you're buying a chunk of the earth, and sometimes Mother Nature has put something there that you didn't realize to begin with. I know one time we were building, when I was working for a builder, we were building through a neighborhood, and there was a limestone shelf that came through and just basically destroyed the ability to put plumbing in like 3 or 4 of our lots. Yeah. And so it was, they had a jackhammer. It was a nightmare, and they didn't know that when they bought them. So
if you're looking at smaller lots for like some infill stuff, which is predominantly what I'm looking at, you'll dig what's called a test pit, where you can have surveying and some soil tests done. And typically, if you're doing an infill lot in some part of town that's already established, you'll know from what's around. I mean, if something's, gonna make or break a deal, you'll know. Typically those features are larger than one lot, and you won't be able to build around that. And that'll be a telltale sign right off the bat. If no one's building around it, something's probably up.
Right.
And it's a place I would look. But yeah, some of the lot specific things I'll look at are the terrain of the lot. If you look at a place like Bella Vista, you can buy lots significantly cheaper than some of the other municipalities. But Bella Vista is super steep.
Yeah.
Most of the lots are super steep. And if you're going to have to build a foundation wall that's
It takes a lot of extra engineering.
taller than a human,
Yeah.
6 to 12 feet tall, your foundation cost, which is already one of the more expensive trade
Right.
packages in an estimate, is going to be pretty significant and can sometimes, make it not pencil out.
Right.
So that's one of the first areas I'll look at. If something's flat, obviously you're going to build a smaller foundation. It's going to be simpler. There's less potential design and engineering fees that you've got to pay for and have drawn up.
Yeah.
That's a really quick one to tell whether something's going to work or not. Another one would be utilities. Looking at where your closest utility locations are.
Right.
A lot of times, for example, if your plumbing lines and your electric lines, your subcontractor is going to have to install a line from the city's utility line from that point to your actual building. You got to get it in the building.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll set a specific under 100 feet was their standard price. If it's over that, that'll cost extra. Obviously, like a yard line, that's a big line. It's going to carry a load from an overhead power line or from a underground line. That's an expensive line, and it also adds a lot of labor to dig a trench that far, lay it, cover it. So you want to be mindful of how long those utility lines and how far you're going to have to run a utility line, a water line, or a plumbing line, or sewer can sometimes be far away too.
Yeah.
That can be one that can get expensive real quick. I've been on several projects where we've taken a standard estimate with a standard 100-yard line and not remember to check those distances, and it's been longer and it adds cost. You can't not have power or water to your house. You have to pay for it.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not as expensive as it's usually not as expensive as your foundation cost and the changes in that, but it still can add several $1,000s, and
Right.
you can be nickel and dimed out of a project making money.
Absolutely.
With a couple of those.
Because there's a limit to profitability.
Right.
Before, and so when those things sneak up because you didn't do enough planning, it hurts.
And often it's multiple little things. It's very rarely some obvious large one item killed the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's death by a million paper cuts.
Right, death by 1,000 cuts or something. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a big one. Septic is another one, still on the utilities. Septic can sometimes, you got to have enough space to run they're called leach lines, basically where your sewer comes out of your house. It's spread out into the property. Depending on how big of a building and how many people and how much water it's got to accommodate, you've got to have a certain amount of space and distance to run those lines and dissipate that waste. So it doesn't fit, and there's not a sewer line to connect to. You can't put a house there.
Yeah. So there's a lot. There's
a
lot of factors that people don't initially think of.
Right.
And so you've got to come to this builder circle. You got to talk to Cameron, hear his presentation, get his whole checklist to keep you on track, and to make sure that you don't tank your project. You know, especially if it's your first project, we want that to be smooth sailing as much as possible. So again, I just want to reiterate that this is going to be October 3rd, 5:30, Golden Corral in Rogers with Cameron Johnson. And tell us a little bit about how people can follow you and keep in touch with you.
Yeah, I've got a personal Instagram page that I'll post some of my work projects that we do. I love showing that stuff off because it is really it's quality work. It's good stuff. Cam K Johnson is my personal one. As we finish projects, I try and kind of loop people into what we're doing, and also my personal projects as I get going in some of those. I'll I'll share as much of that as I can with everybody.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got an Instagram page for my GC license for my personal projects too. That I have it built already, and I'm gonna share some of those.
Okay.
Project updates as I get through some of those in the future. It's Echelon Building Group on Instagram, and I'll share that with everybody too. So,
fantastic. Well, make sure to follow Cameron and come to the talk. As always, it's $20 at the door if you're not a member, or you can just join REI-NWA and you can come for free at the door, $0 at the door, and you can come to programs every week. So we hope to see you there. Once again, I was Coley Bailey, and this is the REI-NWA podcast. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, so good to see you, man.
Yeah, man.
I'm glad we got to do this.
Yeah, this is cool. This
Yeah.
is exciting.